Recording.
This meeting is being recorded. Hola, bienvenidos a todos los que están llegando. Entonces vayan tomando sus lugares. Vamos a comenzar en un minuto o dos. Adelfo 1, 2, 3. Hola, bienvenidos a todos los que están llegando. Vayan tomando sus lugares. Ahorita comenzamos en un minuto o dos. Muchas gracias. Les rogamos durante la sesión tengan sus micrófonos apagados para que el presentador pueda tener más control desde su participación. Sean muy bienvenidos hoy al último día de la segunda semana del encuentro creativo. Ha sido un viaje muy interesante. Muchos de ustedes sé que han estado participando una y otra vez en cada una de las sesiones. Y pues esto ha sido espectacular porque pues tenemos opciones de estudios de posgrado en el extranjero, en Italia, en Polimoda, Polidesign, RUFA, la Rome University of las Arts, University Ulm, el Instituto Marangoni, NAVA, la nueva Academia de Belle Arte, Domus Academy Milán y el Instituto Europeo del Design, IED. Entonces, esto pues les recuerdo y le agradezco muchísimo a la Cámara de Comercio Italiana en México, a la Embajada de Italia, al Italian Design Day, Italia, qué gusto, porque creo que de verdad ha sido una experiencia pues muy gratificante, yo creo que tanto para ustedes como para nosotros, los equipos que lo han estado trabajando. Ahorita me decían precisamente de RUFA que esto ya lo habíamos hablado desde marzo, ya está pasando hasta octubre. Entonces, pues ha sido un trabajo muy arduo para todo esto. Entonces, si eso les parece bien, vamos a comenzar con las palabras de recibimiento del embajador de Italia, Luigi De Chiara.
Embajador de Italia en México, soy muy feliz de presentar Encuentro Creativo, una producción de la Cámara de Comercio Italiana en México con la Embajada de Italia. En México hay un potencial de talento creativo que me parece no logra salir de sus fronteras con la presentación de la oferta formativa de esas instituciones académicas en el campo de las industrias creativas italianas. Queremos ofrecer no solo la posibilidad de mejorarse de un punto de vista técnico, sino también de saber dónde van las tendencias, cómo se ha construido el éxito del Made in Italy, sobre todo en el sector del estilo de vida.
Es un evento muy importante, Encuentro Creativo, porque da la oportunidad a los estudiantes mexicanos egresados de universidades o de institutos académicos de conocer la oferta educativa que hay para cursos de posgrado en el campo del diseño, de la moda y de las artes gráficas.
Así que durante estas 2 semanas de Encuentro Creativo van a poder encontrar tips y conocer acerca de las mejores universidades y institutos italianos. Van a poder conocer a embajadores, a ponentes que están trabajando en la industria, que son también académicos de estas universidades. La finalidad es que disfruten de Italia, que conozcan Italia a través de estos webinars y seminarios y que se aventuren a vivir en Italia y vivir una experiencia llena de conocimiento, de sabiduría y de diseño y de moda. Espero que lo disfruten y muchísimas gracias.
Hola, buenos días otra vez. Hoy tenemos la participación de Roma University of Fine Arts de RUFA, que fue fundado en 1998. Es una escuela que pues básicamente está ofreciendo todo lo que son estudios superiores en las artes visuales, sí, pero también en todas las artes en transición hasta llegar a la multimedia, las artes del cuerpo, lo que sería la animación por computadora, los efectos visuales, el cinema y a la fotografía. Entonces, es una formación integral en todo el campo de las artes contemporáneas. Particularmente hoy tenemos el gusto de recibir a Marta Jovanovic, profesora de Performance Art y coordinadora del Master of Arts in Fine Arts. Marta Jovanovic is a performance artist, es una artista de performance y educadora que tiene la misión de promover y llevar más allá el progreso de la disciplina performancística, y ella ha fundado el Museo de Arte Contemporáneo, el programa de performance en Belgrado. La residencia artística ha tenido del Getty Research Institute en Los Ángeles en 2017, y su trabajo y su vida han tenido la oportunidad de ser reflejados en un documental que se ha ganado muchos premios, que se llama Born Just Now, del 2020, del director americano Roberto Danto. Su trabajo, pues, los más notables están Pionirka, Es mi cuerpo, Amor y Maternidad, y están pues representados en las colecciones de arte más importantes que existen. Entonces es un placer hoy estar aquí con ella, y resulta que el tema es Media Art and Live Performances, y el objetivo es dotar al público de las herramientas necesarias para comprender en profundidad las instalaciones multimedia y los montajes audiovisuales a través de la transmisión de elementos básicos para poder leer los lenguajes de lo que se está representando a través de experiencias de la práctica artística de los 60 hasta los 90. Entonces, pues vamos a estar viendo cómo todo esto se transforma con el advenimiento de la tecnología digital, y lo más importante es poder entender pues cómo ha evolucionado el complejo lenguaje multimedia desde lo que es el New Media Art hasta la exploración de todos los lenguajes artísticos contemporáneos. Entonces, muchísimas gracias a Marta Jovanovic por estar aquí. Y you have the microphone, Marta. Thank you very much for being with us today, this morning and that evening there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for organizing this amazing event. And thank you for everyone who came to listen to what I have to say and to participate, hopefully. Good morning, Mexico. It's a great pleasure to be there with you, even though virtually. Talking about multimedia and talking about transcending the borders, and especially in this complicated historical moment, we can all feel very blessed to be here all together in this virtual space that does not make it any less real. I am talking to you today from Rome University of Fine Arts. You have heard a little introduction. I would like to show you a little video on RUFA also to see what we actually do in real space. The power of the programs that the RUFA offers had actually become relevant in these times because RUFA keeps up with the historical moment that we are in. And that's where also I think our lecture will come in terms of performance art and new technologies and how we use them. New technologies obviously are not linked to the COVID pandemic. It has been numerous decades that the industry has been developing. But I think since we all have somehow came to a lockdown, that's when we started using them intensively as platforms, not only for promoting art in general, but also for creating virtual reality exhibitions, performances online, performances on YouTube, on Instagram, on various platforms that are available to us. I will guide you through what RUFA does, and I will guide you through what I do, and also what is available out there. Use it, even maybe if one day you will not become performance artists. It's a matter of choice and sometimes a lot of sacrifice, but it's an immense joy. But do use it, because in any case, for your artistic practice, it can bring a lot, I think. Artists are representing their times, you know, and we need to use what we have, all the tools, for the best or for the worst, to create artworks. Let me try and share my screen so that I can show you what I had in mind to guide you through today. Is my screen visible? Okay, fantastic. So when I talk about RUFA, this is one of the slogans that I really like. It says real dreams and concrete projects, and that's exactly what we do here. We do our best to bring your idea into the reality, sometimes and often these days into virtual reality. I want you to show this short video. I want to show you this short video, and then I will continue. Yes, this is RUFA in real space. We'll talk, when we talk a little bit more about performance later today, I will tell you also about real time. Do connect with us talking about new technologies through different platforms. We're all on all the social media platforms practically, but I think it's really interesting for all of you to be tuned in live to everything that we're doing, and we are streaming practically every event, every important thing that's happening at RUFA, you can know about through all our social media platforms. About myself, I've started as a painter. I studied in Italy, and I always thought that it was really important to be physically expressed in a way. But then I discovered performance art over 20 years ago, and my life had completely changed. What I find today to be the basics of my practice in every possible sense is emotion. Very often I come out, even though I'm a professor, I come out of the theoretical frame of definitions of what my art is. And I believe that that's what gives me strength and what gives me freedom. The emotion is what guides us as human beings. The emotion is the most precious thing we can gift to someone else, but above all, to ourselves. I wanted to show you a quick work, a performance work that I have done before the pandemic, and it's called Mermaid's Tale. It's a tale, it's a story of a mermaid. I have created a performance in virtual reality. I thought it was extremely interesting to play with the new technology and to understand where the new technology can take us. Obviously, none of us, when this happened in July 2019, could have ever imagined what the history would bring. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you speaking,
yes.
But nothing changed.
But yes,
the same.
the screen is blocked. Just give me 1 second. Let me try and resolve this.
If you, maybe I can help. If you can get out of full presentation, then sometimes get stuck.
Okay, is this better now? Now you see me, okay? Let me try and share it again.
Yes, now we see you.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's there it is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the performance in virtual reality, which is extremely hard to see, and I will not be spending much time on it. You can actually just see me blinking. Can you see me blinking? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, obviously this video is extremely hard to see because it's not in virtual reality, but we are using our computer or phone screens. But the idea was to be absolutely immersed in this virtual reality performance that was taking place in the gallery. We have recorded the performance before the actual presentation. Then the audience came into the art gallery and could watch the performance only through the VR goggles. Over 2 years ago, it was an exciting project. It was a new project, especially when it comes to performance art. Today, we use these technologies more and more also because they allow us to communicate. We can find each other in the virtual space. We can share our opinions, and we can virtually and realistically hang out with people in this parallel world. But the question is, and maybe this is where I should have started today, but I kind of wanted to trigger all your interests. What is performance art? I'm sure that many of you have the definition or would like to grasp on the definition and what it is. I like to think that art can be anything you want if you're dedicated to it, if you have a clear idea and the concept, and if you have a message. And also if it is for the better of the world that we live in, then it's a win-win situation. There are a lot of definitions on performance art, and I will not read, but I will keep the screen up just to tell you that performance art is an action or inaction defined by time and space. In the 1960s, it became as a new discipline through happenings, mostly in New York City, in various gallery and non-gallery spaces. It was extremely underground, and artists were doing amazing things because they had the freedom of non-defined, of the non-defined medium of artistic expression. And today, obviously, it has changed a lot, especially with Marina Markovich's exhibition. The artist is present some 10 years ago at MoMA in New York. And we see more and more performances happening in galleries, museums, even art fairs. And today it became also, performance art gained an academic status. And today we also teach it at the university. It is rare still that performance art is taught at the institutions around the world. But here, RUFA is one of those rare and avant-garde destinations in terms of education where you can actually practice, you can learn and you can practice performance art. One of the key figures in defining performance art as an artistic genre is definitely Rosalie Goldberg. She's a New York curator and art historian. She wrote the first book on performance art called Performance Art in the late 1970s. The book has been reeditioned numerous times. Over a decade ago in New York, she founded Performa Biennial, which is one of the most important events when it comes to performance art in the world. Also, they were extremely advanced in using the new technologies, in bringing the new technologies into performance art and giving it a new life. And we will talk in a little bit about what it means for a performance to have a new life. So the important thing that Rosalie Goldberg says, it says, to me, it's the catalyst. She's talking about performance art. It's the catalyst for the avant-garde. And I do believe that that is the case still today. We are creating, as performance artists, we are creating the new avant-garde. I will stop sharing because my screen got blocked again. I am sorry about that. And here we go. Oh, good. So I will keep it as a PowerPoint for right now. I think it blocks less than if it's on play. So we say performance art is body, time, and space. And then what happens in the digital space? I wanted to show you quickly some of the historical performances. We will not have, we don't have much time to elaborate, but I can make this also PowerPoint available if anybody would like to go through the material later. We usually manage, especially today, being aware how ephemeral performance art is, to make the performance piece live through the documentation. Documentation meaning photo, video, or, you know, a lot of times, especially in the case of older performances, in the performances that happened in the 60s and the 70s, there were no documentation. So all we have practically is narrative. One of the works, one of the seminal works by the great artist Yoko Ono, this happened in 1965. If you look, it's called The Cut Piece. The audience was invited to cut Yoko Ono's clothes off of her body while she was sitting on the floor of the stage. You know, we're talking in 1965. It was a whole different world then, that socially, politically, historically, from this perspective, we cannot even grasp. Another fantastic work is by Marina Markovich and Ulay in the 1980s. It's called The Other Rest Energy, a very dangerous piece where Marina's lover and partner in performances, Ulay, is pointing an arrow straight into her heart for almost 10 minutes of the duration of the work. So when we were watching these as audience, when these things have been watched live in space decades ago, they have been absolutely extraordinary. Today, considering that we have Instagram and Facebook, and you know, we are bombarded by visual images from the morning until night, practically from the moment that we open up our eyes to the moment that we close them. Maybe these images are not as powerful anymore, but we have them as examples of how far performance can take us, especially in terms of emotions that I was talking about at the beginning. Keep always that emotion in mind, feel that emotion inside, and try to intuitively feel what others feel around you. I think this is the essence of any artistic practice. Another seminal work is by Joseph Buiss, and the reason why I would like to, a German artist, and the reason why I would like to show it to you is because I would like to show you another work of how this work has been redone 2 years ago for the surveillance camera. We are using different technologies in documenting performance art, and that's also what's interesting. So practically in 1965, Joseph Buiss decides that it's really boring to just go to the gallery and look at the pictures hanging on the walls. So he takes a dead hare, he brings the dead hare into the gallery, his face completely covered with honey, and gives a tour for several hours to the dead hare around the gallery and calls it a performance. Obviously, critiques all over the place, but today, actually today, it was 2 years ago, Marina Markovich, a Serbian artist, had redone the performance in her own way at the gallery in Belgrade, Serbia, and this is what it looked like.
was a solo performance by Buiss, who was filmed and photographed for 3 hours as he moved through the gallery exhibition with a carcass of hair, whispering with it. His entire head was covered in honey and gold weave. A felt sole was tied to his left foot, and an iron sole was tied to his right. The action ended with Buiss seated on a stool, with one of its legs wrapped in felt, protectively cradling the seized hair in a manner akin to Madonna in Pieta.
So the excitement of this piece is not just that it's a remake of Buiss' performance, and not just that it is in an art gallery and that it's filmed by the surveillance camera. What is exciting also is that Marina Markovich is holding a selfie stick with her phone on it, and she's transmitting this performance live. There are also other cameras recording it. And that's the excitement of the new times. Of the times that we live in. You can make a performance in the gallery or in your room, and the whole world can see you. So as I said, live stream, social media, virtual reality, use it. We have done something extremely exciting at RUFA. Obviously, during lockdown, we could not have been together in our beautiful premises in Rome. And we had to find a way to still make work. And most of my students were locked in their apartments. A lot of them traveled from abroad to reach Rome and to stay in their new homes, and they couldn't even leave because of the quarantine days, because of the lockdown in general. But we have managed to create some really exciting work. And I wanted to show you what we have managed to do.
It is an honor for me to present Performance Cluster, a series of performances by the students of the Master of Fine Arts at RUFA. It was a delight in these historically challenging times to work with the 10 artists and guide them through a particular creative process that culminates in their works this evening.
White sheet of paper is a representation of my life. In Indian Hindu weddings, there's a post-wedding ritual where a bride walks into groom's house, leaving her red footprints as a symbol of prosperity. So I'm adding on to this symbolism in my work, Manifesting Remembrance.
One, Giovanni Yushan, is a witty mind who manages to translate simple, but by no means banal, everyday objects and actions into his work. Alexandra Fongaro is a painter. She likes to play, but I see her as an eclectic poet of actions and objects, and her hesitant but courageous venture into performance art results in dramatically playful actions, full of surprise.
La mia performance si chiama Cristo velato. Ogni volta quando una persona muore ottiene la velatura del Cristo velato, in questo caso una modernizzazione con il sacco per cadavere.
Ghazal Zare Zadegan uses her rich personal and artistic background as the backbone of her work. And on top of it, she layers actions, emotions, and objects. By translating vulnerability and sometimes trauma into her performative acts, she creates poetic works. Julia Saka comes across as silent, as a listener and contemplator. But in her work, she translates female, feminine, and feminist themes into brave pieces across mediums.
Per me è stato molto emozionante potermi esibire in live, soprattutto avere l'opportunità di farlo davanti al pubblico dopo un anno passato a fare performance online a causa del coronavirus.
Ulvia Seidova uses her rich life and cultural background as a backdrop of her work. She's light and playful, but also cynical and brutal, and her performance Do Not Disturb contains those contrasts. Annika Hack is a determined minimalist in aesthetic terms. while her mind is like the Baroque interior of the Roman palazzo. She's sharp and critical of her work, and she never hesitates nor stops.
Okay, I want to stop now and to, well, whose camera is on, to look into your beautiful faces and tell you that now that you have seen the final result of these performances, during the year into making them was extremely emotional, and it was a personal experience for everybody involved, for my students, for the RUFA organization, for the entire academic team, and also for myself. Performance is a very personal place. It's a place of energy. It's a place where the body and the mind emits energy. When there is a performance taking place, very often we don't need to speak. We feel the vibrations, and that's the power of it. Being constrained for a year to work in distance, to not be able to see my students in other ways than through the screen, was a journey that I never thought would have been possible. And as a professor, I was extremely afraid that I would not have managed to be there for them enough. Doing a performance piece takes a lot of courage. It's a vulnerable place. We're exposed. When you show your piece, if it's a painting or a sculpture, for example, and you show your piece in an art gallery or in a museum, you have a distance from it. You can leave it there and you can go away. You can run away if you need to. You can observe it from the side. You can observe it from the side and observe others observing it, not knowing that this is yours. And there's this aspect of voyeurism that is important in observing your audience. I ask my students very often, who is your audience? Who do you make the work for? Because when we find ourselves in the room with our audience, we look at them in the eyes. They can smell our perfume. We can smell theirs, you know. It's a very primordial aspect of performance, just to be able to smell somebody else's smell. And that's what shows the vicinity in the room. COVID had changed all of that. Not only that we could not have been together anymore, but and not close, but the only way to actually be together and to spend time together was through a computer or a phone screen. And finally, being able to be in the gallery at RUFA Space, that's the name of the gallery, our gallery that we use for exhibitions and events, and where these performances simultaneously took place, was extremely emotional for everyone to be there in the room, for everyone to perform together after blood, sweat, and tears that we went through before. If you don't mind, and we have a little more time, I cannot show all the performances of the students tonight, but I have chosen randomly, not because of the preferences. I have chosen 3 because they're so different, just so that we look at them a little bit more in depth. Is that okay?
Right.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Revisando.
Well, just a quick note, this is a real body bag that we were looking for several months to find for this performance. And Amedeo was extremely good at finally finding one and using it in the performance. And I find this reference to a very important art historical subject like the Veiled Christ and how it has been done in this performance in a completely new and contemporary way. Camilla's performance was an endurance, long durational performance that lasted for over 3 hours. This is the very ending of it, but I wanted you to see it and I wanted to share this information with you. And now I will switch quickly to what then we do. Oh, one thing before I forget. Do go on RUFA social media platforms, and there you can watch the entire event because we live streamed it, and the recording of it is still there. You can watch all the performances, and I highly recommend. They're really magnificent. This was the first year of the Master of Fine Arts program last academic year that ended in June. So we ask ourselves today, now that we have all this new technology, what do we do it? You know, like, yeah, what do we do with it? Yes, okay, great. It exists on social media and here and there, and we make our own websites and whatnot, but then what? Is there a way, is there an outlet, is there a place where we could actually show our works in maybe a more serious way, if this is how we want to put it? So one of the definitely attractive and more attractive venues to show, and not only performance art, but art in general, and museums are using it, galleries are using it, art fairs are using it, are the VR spaces, the VR gallery spaces. And I can show you an example of a VR gallery space that I have built with some of my colleagues at the beginning of this year, because it was very, it was the unknown. When can we go back into physical spaces and show the work of the artists that we support and that we admire? So we created a VR gallery in 2020, we have organized a performance art camp, which is something as a performance artist I do. I create those really intense workshops and masterclasses where people from all over the world can participate. And during, unfortunately, our workshop fell into the lockdown time, so we could not have been together, and instead we worked online, and participants created some magnificent work that then as an organization we wanted to show. And that's what we did. And as you can see, we have created a space that looks very much like any gallery and museum. There are even benches, you know, in the middle of the space. You can see in the bottom photograph where you can sit and rest. I mean, your avatar can sit and rest. But the magnificent part of this exhibition is that once you put on your VR goggles, or you log in through your phone or your computer, you create your avatar. You can make your avatar up and dress it the way you like. And you can go to a gallery exhibition. We actually created an opening as well. Guests came, their avatars came from all over the world, and we actually had a chance to interact, to exchange ideas. As you can see, there are wall texts, there are pictures, and there are videos. As you approach the video, you can play it, you can watch it, you can rewatch it, which is actually a bigger luxury than when you're in a museum or in a gallery space. You cannot play the video as you like, but you have to sit there and wait until it ends and begins again if you didn't catch it from the beginning. So we worked a lot on the architecture of the place. Obviously keeping in mind that it's not a real place, but that people need to walk comfortably around the place. Also, the beauty of the virtual space is that you can walk through the walls, which you cannot do in real space. Talking about walking through walls, I highly recommend Marina Markovich's new autobiography, Walking Through the Walls. So for all of you who are or who could be interested in performance art, I think it's a great place to start. You also have it as audiobook, I believe on iTunes and different audiobook platforms. Yep, this is the VR gallery space. Very exciting. Check it out across the internet. There are many and they're absolutely fantastic. Not always easy to navigate, but like with all new technologies, we need some practice and we need some patience. So please explore those elements. Talking about performance art and talking about us as artists wanting to experiment and wanting to take our practice further. For the end of this talk tonight, I wanted to leave you with a little assignment. Going back to Yoko Ono, who is a magnificent artist and a magnificent woman, and do research her life and her work. I think it can, whatever discipline you would want to work or you're working already in, I think it's definitely a place to learn. In the 60s, Yoko Ono wrote a book called Grapefruit, which is not a typical book that you sit and read, but it's a set of instructions for different performances. Sometimes very abstract, sometimes funny, sometimes silly, but definitely something that I highly recommend to have on your bookshelf and to enjoy it and to play with it. And I guarantee even to this day, I have it on my shelf, I take it out, I read it. Sometimes I do performance exercises through it. I give performance exercises to my students. So as tonight, a little bit extra, I wanted to present you a little description of the performance, a little instruction for the performance by Yoko Ono that's called the City Piece. She says, walk all over the city with an empty baby carriage. This is an instruction for the performance from 1961. I would like to ask you to do it today, to do it. I don't know if you have a baby carriage, borrow it. I don't know, steal it. Don't steal it, I'm joking. If you do, then return it. But walk all over the city with an empty baby carriage and live stream with your phone and see what happens. Make a performance out of it. Thank you all so much for being here tonight with me. And thank you for inviting me to this magnificent event.
Thank you very much, Marta Jovanovic. Thank you very much. Let me tell you that I think most of our public, are you hearing me? You hear me well? Yes, all right. Yes. Let me tell you that I'm pretty much afraid that much of the public today, it's quite young. And I said I'm very much afraid about it because in the 1980s in Mexico, maybe the most interesting part of our art was performance art. And every time that there is the opening of an exhibition or any kind of event, we have performance artists and performance acts that even today are re-mentioned and are part of the memory of Mexican art. And then for the 90s, everything changed. And then the conceptual art, performance can be conceptual art, of course, but for the 90s, it stopped being about the body and started to be about the installation So, and the object and the reflection of the object and the philosophical part of it. So performance was like a racing from memory. And then in the very beginning of the 90s, myself, I make a performance festival, the performance month at the Museo del Chopo, and then eventually it was created Exteresa. So I was an artist in those times, and I was a performance artist. But one thing that after that I dedicated to was to design. And one of the things that I always say to my students, that if they make a chair that only function to sit, is not an interesting chair, because you have to understand the chair, all the uses that can have, all the things that can be done, and how can it perform in reality, and then you will understand the chair. So if you put the face in the chair, maybe you are starting to learn how to use a chair, but not if you don't do it. And this thing that you said about body, time, and space, I always think that the bad photography, for example, the bad fashion photography, is the photography that put just the model in a cyclorama at the end, because it has no body, it does not understand the space, and certainly is not happening in time. So if you want to make a good photography, you have to understand body, space, and time, and then you understand that is performance, and that you're taking your photography not of something that is quite static, but from something that is quite active. And I'm telling you this little reflection because Marjane Vargas Barajas, that is one of the people looking at us right now, she says, I'm studying visual arts and I never considered trying performance. And so that's the thing that I thought it was interesting, because in the 80s in Mexico, if you were studying visual arts, you will be doing performance certainly. But now by watching some performances and learning more about them, I feel a lot of admiration toward performance. I think it's very admirable the effort they put into their work, not only by using a visual language to share their messages, finding their materials and being there, but also because of their body language and passion of what they do. It's absolutely amazing. So it's interesting because of that. Since if we understand quite well the performance, we will learn that is the key to understand the body, to understand the design for the body, and to understand any other expression in contemporary art. Maybe that's the reason why it only has 60 years old, because it's so modern and it's so necessary. And it's so of this time, the necessity of have a body now with the COVID, now that we cannot be in touch, now that yesterday, now that we are in the moment to start the metaverso, it's absolutely important to have a body that is happening in time and that is performing in space. So thank you very much for your reflections.
Thank you so much. You're so right. You know, the performance comes out always in the most difficult times.
Yes.
And that's why I believe in the resilience of it. So I don't worry that performance art will come back to Mexico. And I think that all that has been done in the times that we think now are lost. The same thing happened in the 90s, for example, in ex-Yugoslavia. Performance artists just stopped working. They fled. They had nothing to eat. You know, it was a terrible economic, there was a war and there was a terrible economic situation. But those artists kept on working in another front. And then eventually they all came out one way or the other, you know. So I think performance is still, no matter how much we see it today online and galleries and museums, it's still an underground discipline. And that's what gives it freedom. And that's what gives it honesty of expression, you know. So just keep on making work. That's my only advice and only encouragement. Just keep on making work.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe even it's an idea that it has not yet seen the sun of light, about how many of those things that they are looking all the time in TikTok are already a performance, but they do not know it.
But it takes time, like with everything else. It takes time to redefine, to understand, to learn, to unlearn, to construct, to deconstruct, in order to be able to make one's own opinion. Even today, you know, after so many years and my own years and years of working, I still construct and deconstruct and ask myself questions that I have done at the very beginning of my practice, you know, and I think that's what keeps us fizzy, you know, I think that's what keeps us alive. But I know about Ex Teresa, and I know about the history of performance art in Mexico. And the reason why I didn't include it tonight was because I thought that that's not completely lost. But now that you told me that it is, I want to encourage everyone participating, go back, dig that performance art history, so precious, not just for your country, but for all of us. Make it known. Yes. We want to see it on TikTok.
Mm-hmm. Let me have a final question with you. When I was presenting you, it says that there is this documentary, this, I don't know how to say it, this movie, Born Just Now, where we can see it.
It is still going around festivals and it's not outside free, but I will, there is a talk to possibly screen it. It was in several festivals already in Americas, but there is a talk that it's going to be in Mexico City as well. And then I will make sure to pass on the information and hopefully see you there at the premiere.
It's gonna be soon?
I'm hoping in 2022.
Ah, all right. And you already know where, or is it still
I don't know anything. The film, no, it's not a secret. It's just that the film is about me, but it's not me who is the author, and it's not me who is. They just kind of let me know a little bit in advance, and if they want me to promote the film, then I go. But it was an interesting. It was a very interesting experience, you know, because as a performance artist, when I perform, it's one thing, but the film is also very personal. So, you know, it was. I'm also a little bit shy about it, but the film is out there, and it's a personal journey. It's a story of my artistic process, because my artistic process is very personal.
All right. Yo lo quiero ver. I wanted to see it. So I think everybody else also wanted to see it. And thank you very much, Marta Jovanovic. It was really a pleasure. It's a detonant of a lot of feelings, emotion, and memories, all the things that you said, and the possibility of the performance as the top of the possibilities of art in nowadays world.
And it is the future. I'm not saying this because I'm a performance artist, but it is the future of art, especially with new technologies and the vanishing of the material world.
Yes, exactly. It will be the most important thing to recover our body. Well, tenemos, I'm going to say it in Spanish, tenemos aquí en el fondo a la directora, pues de toda la que está promoviendo todas estas cosas, casi que la detonadora de este evento, que es Fariba Gallardo, de la Cámara de Comercio Italiana en México, que va a cerrar esta sesión de hoy. Entonces, thank you very much, Marta Jovanovic. Le cedo la palabra a Fariba Gallardo y vamos a oír qué nos va a decir, que estamos ya en el cierre. Muchas gracias.
Sí, Gustavo, muchísimas gracias por tu intervención. Muchísimas gracias a Marta y a Ana de RUFA por ser parte de esta primera edición de Encuentro Creativo. Pues sí, efectivamente ya este es nuestro último día de esta primera edición, esperando que haya muchísimas más. Estoy segurísima que así va a ser. Agradecer a todos nuestros participantes, que seguramente muchos de los que están ahora nos han estado siguiendo. ¿Qué más puedo decir? La Embajada de Italia está muy agradecida, muy contenta por este proyecto, el cual también lo están promoviendo en Italia a nivel institucional. Agradecer a nuestros patrocinadores que fueron parte de esta primera edición y que sin ellos no hubiera sido posible. Tenemos por aquí a Fénix, a Zegna, Yamamá, Scavolini, Alfa Parf, Ferrero, Amoretti Brothers, Vialetti, Campari, Ferrari, San Pellegrino, Capricho, Secretos del Vino, Riedel y Grupo Berlingo. Y también, pues, muchísimas gracias a Gustavo, que es representante de Trendo.mx, por haber sido, pues, nuestro moderador durante a lo largo de estas 2 semanas. La verdad que muchísimas gracias, Gustavo, por todo tu apoyo y por todas tus aportaciones. Y pues a RUFA, y a que todavía nos falta un seminario más adelante a las 11. Así que muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes. Pues estamos cerrando, pero por favor, como lo he dicho a lo largo de estas 2 semanas,
la Cámara Italiana no cierra el interés por esta industria con el día de hoy con el Encuentro Creativo, sino vamos a estar muy atentos. Acérquense a nosotros si quieren si tienen preguntas, dudas legales de cómo ir a estudiar Italia, cualquier cosa. Nosotros somos el canal con estas universidades italianas, pues para poder apoyarlos y seguir fomentando e incrementando la oferta académica de mexicanos en Italia, que pues nosotros como institución tenemos el cometido de promover y acercar a Italia a México, y encantados de hacer este trabajo. Muchísimas gracias en verdad, y pues cerramos este encuentro creativo, pero seguimos en contacto. Por ahí, por favor, revisen, porque pues hay ofertas, descuentos que están ofreciendo estas universidades, ya lo hemos dicho a lo largo de estas 2 semanas, y pues quedamos atentos a todos sus requerimientos que quisieran resolver a través de nuestras redes sociales.
Bueno, y muchísimas gracias, Fariba. Y ahora vamos a ver el video de cierre. Acuérdense que todavía hay 2 sesiones, pero ya empieza el video de cierre del excelentísimo señor embajador de la República Italiana, ¿no? Que nos va a decir la despedida. Muchas gracias.
Así es.
Soy Luigi de Chiara, embajador de Italia en México, y quiero agradecer a la Cámara de Comercio Italiana y 8 entre las más prestigiosas instituciones académicas italianas en el campo de la industria creativa.
Gracias por haber sido parte de Encuentro Creativo, un evento organizado por la Cámara Italiana y la Embajada de Italia. Muchísimas gracias a todos nuestros patrocinadores y sobre todo a las universidades italianas que hicieron posible este evento. Espero que hayamos despertado en ti la intención de viajar a Italia y vivir una experiencia multicultural y académica. Muchísimas gracias, a la próxima y arrivederci.
Muchísimas gracias, Marta Jovanovic. Muchísimas gracias, Fariba Gallardo. Y a todos ustedes, recuerden que faltan 2 sesiones todavía el día de hoy. Entonces, todavía no nos despedimos, aunque ya estamos cerrando. Pues muchísimas gracias y arrivederci.
Arrivederci.